I'm here today with the game Raiders of the North Sea by Shem Phillips, published by Renegade Games. It is a great worker placement game that has a unique mechanism to it as far as how you both place a worker and get the action, and then pick up a worker and get that action. There's also Valkyries in it. It's a fun game. We're going to take a look at how to play it and what I think of it. So we'll come back at the end and talk about my feelings. As you can see, it was an award-winning game in 2017. I think it's one of the best evergreens as far as worker placements. So let's go ahead and take a look at this game.
All right, I have Raiders set up for a 4-player game. It's not hard to do that, but you're going to place the game board in the center of your playing area, shuffle all the townsfolk cards into the deck, and you want those to be where everybody can reach, hopefully, but it is kind of hard the way the board is a little bit longer. Not a big deal, although you're going to work together, right? So you're going to shuffle all the offering tiles. That's these things with this white background here. Let's take a look at one of those real quick. So it has that background, and then on the other side it has things that will come up in the game. We'll talk about the gameplay in here in a minute. Shuffle those. You put 3 out, 1, 2, 3 over there on the bottom right hand side of the board. Then the next thing you do is you place all your Valkyrie, plunder, and plunder includes gold and livestock and the iron ore. You place all that in the bag here. I've already done that in this case, but these are your Valkyrie, so we'll take a look at those. Those are important. As I mentioned, you probably want to kill those off. So they all go in this bag. You give the good bag a good shake, and then you'll place them out on the board. Let's take a look at the board real quick. Following the green numbers in the top left corner of these white squares. So this one says 4, so that's why I randomly took 4 items out of the bag and I put 4 out there. After you do that, you'll get your white workers and your gray workers, and look at the top right corner of all those spaces. Let's take a look at those ones, white and gray. And white and gray workers will go out on the board corresponding to the same symbol that goes there. Basically, you'll start at the top left-hand corner with white, fill in white workers, and then gray fill in below that. The next thing is make sure each player has 2 silver from the supply, that they have their black worker, and that they have their ship card. All right, so that's the ship card. The ship card has 2 sides. You start on this side, and then you can see it over here, the 50-point side. All right. Then you're going to take your deck here, shuffle it, make sure it's shuffled well, and deal 5 cards to each player. Each player is going to get to keep 3. We'll take a look at those cards in a minute, but everybody's keeping 3 of their cards. Make sure each player takes their tokens. In this game, I've set it up like the red player is going to be first, takes their tokens and places them on the armor track, on the Valkyrie track, and on the victory point track, but all on the starting space of each. If you're not in a 4-player game like this one, you will have some leftover black workers that you're going to put off to the side, but make sure that you do put a black worker in the gatehouse, in the town hall, and the treasury before you set any black workers off to the side. In a 4-player game, you use all those black workers to start. All right, after you've done all that setup, each player rolls the dice to determine the starting player. In this case, we just said that the red player is the starting player. A couple things to take note of as you start the game. First of all, these offering tiles remain face down throughout the game. If you ever run out of those, the game's going to be over. Making offerings is absolutely an important part of winning the game. You see here that you have victory points on them. Let's take a closer look at one. So victory points are in the top right corner of those. You're really going to want to be doing that during the game. Another thing to be aware of is that whatever resources are down here, whether it's the goods or these resources here, if they run out for some reason and you don't have any available to you on your turn, then that's it. They're not an unlimited supply, they are a limited supply. Players are limited to holding no more than 8 silver, 8 provisions, and 8 cards in their hand at the end of the turn. They can collect more than that during their turn, but there is a limit at the end of their turn that they have to discard down to. The game is focused on your workers. Your workers are always going to do 2 things. They're either going to work or they're going to raid. So your work is all going to start down here in this village down here, and then you're going to start raiding up here. But if you work, you would first place a worker and resolve the action. Let's say I went to the armory. At the armory, I could pay an ore and get 2 ticks up here, or I could pay 2 silver. I don't know if you can see that well with the cards there, but I can pay 2 silver. And if I pay 2 silver, then I could get 1 tick up on this track. There's all sorts of things you can do at the village. I'm not going to go over all those. They're fairly self-explanatory. But the unique thing about this game is that after I place a worker down and resolve that ability, then I'm going to pick up a worker and resolve that ability. You're always going to do 2 things, and you will always end your turn with a single worker in your hand. As you think about this board, things to keep in mind are, first, players cannot pick up the same worker they just placed. Second, players can choose to place or pick up a worker without taking the building's action. So you don't have to do the building's action just because you take a worker or place a worker there. And players can only take each building's action once per turn. So again, going back to, they can't pick up the same worker that they just placed. The only place that might be different is the Sage Longhound. One of the things we need to talk about before we go any farther is that your cards essentially act as a worker in this game. So right there, this plus sign means that you get to hire one of these cards, these Vikings that you have here. So I would pay 4 silver for this guy, and I can use them one of 2 ways. I can either, if killed in a raid, gain a victory point, or play it for the blue side. All players must give you 1 silver or 1 provision. So I can use it those ways. Those are some ways that I can use the card. But I also use it when I visit the top half of the board. So let's say I wanted to go in on a raid, and I come up here to this spot where there are 3 open worker spots. I can place one of my workers. These are black or gray workers. I place one of them there. I can get the provisions, but in order to go there, well, let's talk about that. In order to go there, I would not only place my worker, but I also have to spend a provision that I already have in my supply, and I would have to have 3 of these Vikings hired already, not just in my hand, but hired, and they're working for me. They're out on the table in front of me where everybody can see. So if I have 3, then I can go there. And then, this is where I talked about earlier, you're killing off your workers. So I could use 2 Valkyries, kill off 2 of my Vikings. I'd only have 1 down in front of me, but then I would go up on, and let's zoom back out here. I would go up on the Valkyrie track over here by 2. I'd have a victory point at the end of the game if I were to kill my worker like that, and the Valkyrie would go back into the supply. So there's lots of unique things like that, including the fact that I can use my cards in different ways, not just for what's printed on them, but I can use them as workers that help me to go to places, help me to fulfill the requirements on the top half of the map. On a raid, you need to check that you have a large enough crew, that's the cards, that you have enough provisions and gold for the monasteries and the fortresses, places like that, and then you have the required worker color. Down here you start with black, and then it starts getting gray, and as you get towards the top of the map, up there, way up there, you get to the point where you have to have a white in order to do the things. Once a player decides to raid a settlement, they follow the following steps. They place their worker there, they pay the required provisions of gold to the supply, they roll the dice. So not all these do you have to do that, but once you start doing the outposts and things like that up here, you'll roll the dice, and you add up your total military strength, which is your dice, plus any numbers showing on your cards. So this is why you might hire this worker. So that one has a strength of 4. Add all that up, and then you get to determine victory points. So again, the yellow banner. So you receive additional victory points from hired crew, and you pick up your new worker and any plunder that's there. Also, you get to decide if you want to do the Valkyrie actions. If you don't use the Valkyrie, then that's going to go away. After you pick up your new worker along with any plunder and resolving those actions, your turn's over. Then it continues to the next player, so forth, just like your other turns. As before, the current player can either work or raid on each new turn. So we've gone over the basics of gameplay. It's really not that hard of a game once you get used to it. There are just some iconography things that you have to get used to, but they're easily lookable, and I think I just made up that word. It's easy to look up those things in the rule book. There's nothing too confusing. But there are 3 ways the game can end. if there's only one set of plunder left in the fortresses, so 5 of the 6 fortresses have been raided. Those are up at the top of the board. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. If only one of those is left, then the game's going to end. Offering draw pile has been emptied. Remember, that's over here with these backs. That's the offering draw pile. If that has been emptied, or there are no Valkyries left out on the board. So it is possible that you could end the game way early. In fact, in the current setup, it looks like, it looks like that if you were to grab all the Valkyrie, you might not even get to the fortresses. So that's any of those 3 conditions. Once those have been met, the current player finishes their turn, you resolve any unfinished actions, and then each player, including the current player, has a final turn before the game ends. In other words, you get a final round. That's the basics of the game. Let's go over in-game scoring. Okay, take a look at the Valkyrie trek, and you're going to look at the banners there. Wherever your marker ends up, that's how many points you'll get from there. It's pretty straightforward. You will take a look at the armory track, same thing. Take a look at your collected offering tiles, and these do get to stay as hidden information throughout the game. So you could have a bunch of points that nobody has seen. You pay for those when you go over to the longhouse by paying, like here, this is silver and 2 of the cattle and 1 gold. So, but you get 5 points. Hired crew, some of your crew members are going to earn victory points at the end as they're shown on the cards. And then plunder. You score this way. So 1 gold. So you have to think of it this way as you pick up those offering cards. Is 1 gold is 1 victory point at the end, 1 iron is 1 victory point at the end, and every 2 livestock, I like to call them cows, but they are like livestock, every 2 livestock, so they're basically half a point, but you need 2 to be a whole point, is a victory point at the end. I say half a point, but they don't count for anything if you only have 1. You don't round. You don't get to have half points. Okay, so after all the players have done all that, they've looked at their cards, the Valkyrie trek, army trek, collected the offering tires, and hired their crew, they're going to have your final score. If there's a tie, the player furthest up the Valkyrie track is the winner. So again, killing your people off is a good thing in this game. If you're still tied after looking at that, then you'll look to the army track. So Valkyrie track, then army track if there's a tie. That's the game. I hope you like it.
Now that we've gone through it and gotten to see how Raiders plays, again, I would say that the fact that we get to kill off our Valkyries and have fun with that is very thematic and works mechanically well. I think the fact that all the pieces are nice, you get those nice metal coins in here, you get your wooden, if my preference isn't clear yet, you get those nice wooden workers, even though they're not necessarily always uniform. I think that the chieftain area and the sacrifices there is a great mechanic for getting points. It is a bit of a point salad game. I like almost everything about this game. I think it has an easy learning curve, and even if you're not used to this type of game, you can pick it up and learn it, and it might get you into other games that have similar mechanics. I think Raiders is a wonderful game. If you haven't yet checked it out, check it out. We have a rental copy here in our library. That's what I used for the rules and how to play and the setup. So if you haven't checked out Raiders, I would strongly encourage it. My favorite in the series, there's a whole series of these games. My favorite in the series so far is the Paladins game. Got to play that a while back and tried it again. I really, really like it. Paladins and Architects are great games that continue the series of games from the Raiders of the North Sea series. So, yeah, check them out. See what you think. Tell me what you would want to see or what you like or don't like in the comments. So subscribe or watch another video. Thanks, and we'll talk to you later.